So with conversations about, making it a little bit easier and more seamless for us to get through our content every week and every month, we're also talking about things like, homeschooling realities and the ongoing COVID adventure that's making all of it that much harder. And that's a fairly obvious statement, but I'm just really finding that no matter what your work situation is, for those of us pursuing entrepreneurial or contract work, or dreaming of starting something, I'm finding the biggest challenge right now is not necessarily, content tools, the right scheduling platform, but just staying motivated. And I don't know if anyone has any suggestions on that, please type them in the chat. I did a Facebook or an Instagram live this morning with my partner from Social Market, our freelancer marketplace, and her name is Jen. We go way back to age 6 and decades of friendship. And we have a lot of real conversations about, I don't know, just the realities, with the female angle. I think we're all women on here right now, if I can just assume by your names. And I don't know, I don't want to talk about the she session and the mompreneurs struggling harder than their male counterparts. But man, it's real, right, Melissa? I love seeing your stuff, by the way. Riendo is such a neat company. And if you want to put it in the chat and let us know how we can work with you, Melissa has an incredible, I don't want to call it a party planning company because it's so much more than that. It's a really innovative a version of events. And I don't know how you're weathering COVID, Melissa, but would love to hear how things are going. You don't have to unmute yourself, but.
I can. I actually, like everybody else, I've been pivoting. So I'm working on something totally new and contracting out. So
really?
what's going on? Because you know
Good
what?
for you.
Events are going to be huge. Might be 2 years, but they're going to be huge. They're going to be huge again. So
good for you to think that way. I love it.
Yeah.
Are you going to let us in on what the pivot is?
Basically, I'm working on kind of a mobile bar, somewhat similar to the Prosecco bar.
Oh my God.
Like the Piaggio Italian Vespa. We're just working at customizing one that we have shipping from India. So we're going to make it more like more kid friendly, but boozy too.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
So we're working on some fun stuff. It'll
awesome.
be ready by the time COVID's done.
Cool. Is there any way for us to work with you in the meantime? Did I get your company name right? Riendo, right?
Yep, Riendo. Yeah, I just shifted. I'm doing more marketing consulting and social media planning and social media management now, because everybody, and this is, I think you're right, Kelly, like everybody is struggling with their social media. They don't know where to be and they don't have the time. And so just helping clients right now with that, because they feel like they need to be everywhere. And I don't think they need to be everywhere.
No, I agree. Yeah. But we need to be one or two places half decently and not completely fall off the map.
Yeah. But I have some clients that are like, I need to be on TikTok. And I'm like, do you though? Like, yeah, but do you? Like, you're a one person shop. Like, do you have the resource? So I'm just happy to learn from you guys.
No, that's really cool. I did a Banff and Lake Louise tourism webinar yesterday. I work with that group a little bit, of which Joanna is a member there. Joanna has a tea shop, and it is called, oh, Joanna, help me out. The name, I'm forgetting the first, I feel like it's your mom's name, but it's a tea house outside of, or just in Lake Louise, and it's incredible. But anyway, one of the gals on there weighed in and said that she had started doing, and she
Lake Agnes Tea House. Sorry for interrupting.
Lake Agnes Tea House.
Thanks,
Lake Agnes Tea House.
Got kids running around, so I'm not showing you my
got
face.
3 kids. You got to do your thing.
I'm like,
I have a new destination to hike to when you open in June, because it sounds amazing. Lake Agnes Tea House, everybody. And thank you, Joanna. So anyway, there was another gal on our webinar yesterday from the Banff area, and she has a mountain photography and wedding planning company, and she knows a lot about the area, and she's a huge resource for brides. And she took something out of one of our social club conversations and workshops where she is doing something similar to this, where she's using a Friday Q&A, just a live Q&A on Facebook, where she's inviting people to show up and ask her questions about planning their mountain wedding destination, or their, vendors and suppliers, and all the information that she has in her head. And I loved it. Joanna may remember that she said, it's kind of embarrassing. Sometimes nobody shows up and I just talk to myself, but she has a few pre-planted questions, or, conversational topics that she can speak to. And then she turns that into her content for the week ahead. So that's the theme of today. As we talked last week, if you're here at the workshop, we talked about the keystone content, which is that one really key piece of content. If you can get that off your plate, or if you can get that created, I should say, every week, it can turn into a lot of other pieces. And I just loved that she is doing the same thing that's kind of happened with me by default as well, where this workshop is actually turning into, my one main video for the week that I can turn into a blog, and a bunch of social sound bites, and a few email snippets for my email marketing, a couple of Instagram stories. It gives you something to tee up beforehand and something to tee up afterwards. So one piece of content per week, as Melissa's saying. You don't have to be everywhere. If you feel like it should be TikTok, great. And maybe that's more on the fly or when you can. But in terms of the pre-planned content that can actually keep you rolling, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's got to be as painful as it can be, something that you commit to. And thanks to you guys, it's helping me get that thing off the ground each week, because it's so easy to push that so-called blog you're going to write or video you're going to create. If you invite people to it, there's no getting out of it. That's one thing. Or you can batch it in a really determined process, or something that you're committed to, which we're going to talk about today. I like to call it the N.I.C.E.R method. Before we go there, does anyone else want to weigh in with anything? Sheena, nice to see you. Hi, Mary. Hi, Katie. We have been, I think, pretty honest lately in some of our conversations around social school about, the struggle is real. We had a lot of people pull back from doing our website launch lab that was slated to start on Monday, because of realities of homeschooling and just, again, kind of ongoing exhaustion. So we're all trying to stay positive and keep each other sane. And you guys are certainly doing that for me. Anyone else have any other tips, or maybe words of wisdom they've heard lately? Don't have to do with content marketing. I'm gonna tell you the one that I had, that I repeated this morning on our Instagram live. It was, I have enough, I am enough, and my favorite, I do enough. For those days where you feel like you're just sinking in quicksand or spinning your wheels and you're not actually being productive. Okay, feel free to add anything as we go here, you guys. I'm going to do a quick, not review, but we're just going to build on what we've talked about the last 2 weeks. So I love that you're here, and I love that you're finding these workshops hopefully useful, and they're really fun for me to create. So this has been sort of a trifecta, actually, where we started with the foundations of creating content. You guys have your methods. We all have our kind of maybe spreadsheets, planning tools, creative brainstorming sessions occasionally. But the more we can put this into a repeatable process and make it a less painful part of our marketing activities or our business development and sales, then the more fun and rewarding it becomes, but also the bigger the return, 100%. You can't expect to sell and scale or even have success of any kind on social media or with long form content like blogs, podcasts, videos, if you're not consistent with it. I don't care how bad it is. Consistency will win every time over bad content. And I know you know this because we've all seen people with massive followings that don't necessarily have the most brilliant things to say, but they just keep showing up, and they have from day one. They get the paralysis out of the way, they stop the excuses, and they just find a way to consistently serve their people with something, even if it's just a trite soundbite once a day or once a week. So this is the third part, the N.I.C.E.R method. This is something that we are going to be bringing to life in the Content Club, which is our new membership that'll be within Social Club that I'm so excited about. And it is essentially built for people like me. I built it for myself, but for any of us who struggle to do exactly what we're talking about. When it comes to operations and business development and sales and customer service and HR, all of those things get hotter fires underneath them that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and the content marketing that is so important to growing our business long term, and of course our authenticity and our accessibility and our authority and trust, all those things that we know to be key, fly out the window the moment we fall off the map. So the foundations was 2 weeks ago, where we looked at kind of the content formula and the idea of creating your pillars and your categories, which aren't new, but then also some content topics that you could start to map out over so-called 52 weeks. If you know your milestones, your events, your major happenings of the year, so that's from your sales perspective or your revenue needs or whatever it is. And then you've got your audience's needs, because they don't really care about, your Q4 targets or your when you're going to be in from the red to the black, or what your summer campaign is. They just know that they need to buy swimsuits from you in September, or that you have a great Christmas gift selection that they want to be ready to purchase in November. And you've got to tee it up far enough advance for you to be on their radar. So of course this comes with planning. The foundations we set with those so-called 52 topics, but maybe that's too many. The idea was that you were going to take your 4 main pillars of content and you're going to divide it up and come up with 10 to 13 topics for each of those. And we asked you a lot of leading questions that would be thought starters for some really great keystone content ideas. And from there, ideally, we're starting to build out this like year ahead or 6 month ahead content plan, so that we can batch shoot it, batch write it, batch create it in advance, schedule it, make it happen. And as we like to say, the 50-50 method, 50% of your content is scheduled, 50% is live and on the fly that you can add to as things come up. And maybe that's just your TikTok or your Instagram stories that you do on a daily basis. But the 50% that's scheduled makes it happen. The other 50 keeps it real. So as we introduced the Keystone content idea last week, now we're going to tie it into the N.I.C.E.R method. This is part 3 of 3, where we're going to look at sort of the true recipe for making it happen and the process. So really kind of brass tacks and tactics today, not just the fluffy creative ideas of your topics, but actually the process, the month in advance to make it happen. So we're talking about any and all of us who are finding a better way or wanting to find a better way for ourselves or our clients or our company to strategize and create content that actually moves the needle. And again, that's not just creative, that is our creativity, that's consistency. So we've been helping people tell their story online for a really long time. And Social School's gone through some major pivots over the last year as well, like many of you. And we've moved into, well, just more digital and virtual courses than ever before, since we're not gathering in person and running around like across Canada goat show of conferences and workshops. So our new academy is live, and our tools have been sort of the last piece of the puzzle within the academy. And I'm really excited about those because they're like $19 and $29 planning tools and templates that I think you're really going to like. And those go live next week. There's a blog planner, a content planner, a productivity planner, and a brand planner. And they're really, really fun. And then the community, which you're all a part of if you're here via the social club, and that is our free give back. So if we've learned anything, I think we can all relate that we are, looking for content that's fun and engaging and valuable today, and that campaigns that are really winning. Like if you saw the Excel gum ad that was circulating over the last couple of weeks, showing all the people flooding out of their houses post-COVID, making out in the park. People want to laugh. People want to connect. We know this. So how are you finding ways to do that yourselves? I'm not saying we've got it dialed, but finally we're able to better serve our community, I hope, through our free social club, which I'm so thrilled to have you join us in. And then if you're looking for contractors, or if you are one, this is a brilliant solution for anyone. Even if you're a virtual assistant, you don't have to be a website developer to be a part of Social Market. There's a whole lot of clientele out there, and businesses big and small that need freelance talent and digital contractors to help them pivot, to help them relaunch, to help them figure out the Instagram, to help them build their Squarespace site. And we're trying to pair them up through Social Market. So we're pretty obsessed with giving you what you need to bring your business online and succeed at it. We talked again about those content pillars. We've talked about pillars and categories and content types for a decade now at Social School. But what we're getting better at, hopefully helping you do, is not only activate on those things, but replicate and grow with it and see results, see what's working and what's not, and then continue to build on it. The idea of that keystone content is simply that it gives you something to jump off every week in this time of feeling like we're drowning, feeling like we're sinking, or whatever. Just one idea per week. It doesn't have to be 50 ideas across 12 platforms. One idea that spreads through a few other platforms of tier 1, 2, and 3 priorities that we're going to look at today, which really is a fun way to look at, or a fun way to proceed. So finding a formula and then committing to a process. As they say, nothing happens if you're not consistent with it, or you're not committed to it and putting it in your calendar as an unmovable date. And we're going to hopefully do that today, either on a weekly or a monthly basis. Totally up to you. But I hope that before we hang up today, you've put some dates in your calendar to mark off some of these really key blocks of time, where you're not letting it fall off. You're not letting anything stand between you and your go forward content creation goals, so that you can start to see what others claim to be huge success in their content marketing efforts, not just with fans and followers, but with revenue, sales, and scalability. So if you were able to come up with some topics, if you have 13 topics times your 4 pillars of your business or your marketing kind of buckets, you're going to have 52 weeks of really great springboard ideas. It's that one big idea that you can leap from and spill down. This is a glimpse of our blog planner, and I talked about this last week, but any kind of content bank. This is built in Trello. I love Trello because you can automate a number of things, and it's just really shareable with your team, and it's virtual sticky notes that you can move around. And then of course, when you add dates to your sticky notes or your ideas, you can see it in the calendar view, which is really great. So this is one of our tools, but whatever it is that you're using, great. As long as it's dynamic, meaning that it's built on something like Google Docs or Sheets or some other kind of tool where if it's you and your team, you can share it and see it easily and always be updated. Or if you're on the fly, you can add to it from your phone, from your whatever device, as you have ideas, as you write when you feel inspiration after getting out of the shower, whatever your process is. My slightly scary looking one, but just to give you an idea, I dump ideas all the time. I constantly preach that pillars should be built or kind of baked in emotion. What are the emotional pillars that you can connect to? More like community, culture, people, personality, or, rather than product forward, like, flooring, siding, windows. But it's up to you. And I've just broken that rule by making mine pretty much based in our products, because I have a digital business where every quarter we have a marquee program that we're launching. So I know that my pillars can be based a little bit more in an offering, in a product category, and that's fine. I can find the emotion within the topics from there. So my major pillars for 2021, websites and e-commerce, community and content, that's what we're talking about, memberships, the social club, the content club, lots of other things that have to do with collaboration. Number 3 would be social media marketing, and number 4 is digital marketing. We're talking SEO, but the social media marketing is supporting that certificate program. The digital marketing is supporting that certificate program. And both of those I'm running live later in the year. So not every single bit of content for that quarter is going to be blue social media marketing related, but I'm going to weave it more heavily into that quarter. And because I'm not going in for the hard sell, I'm not going to say, my keystone content week 1 of quarter 3 is not going to be why social media marketing is the best. It's going to talk about pain points, needs, desires. It's going to build, and I'm going to be listening and always learning from my people to understand what it is, what questions are they asking? What do they most need today? Will it be something really helpful like, next week's Wednesday workshop, or 2 weeks from now, I think, how to build your Instagram shop? Well, of course, that's within that realm. So, and that might be a category, how to, or a did you know, or a behind the scenes, testimonial, Q&A, unboxings, unveilings. There's so many fun ways we can make our pillars more interesting with those categories. Generally, pillars are unique to your business alone. Categories are going to be kind of more universal, but they add variety. Just like a magazine, you're flipping through a magazine, you don't just see feature story, feature story, feature story, or, you know, Q&A, Q&A, Q&A. You see this really rich content that keeps people coming back for more. It stops them from scrolling right by. It gets them can't wait to open your e-newsletter this week, because what's it going to look like and feel like? Short versus long versus just variety is what we're looking for. So, you know, of course, then we're talking about the platforms first things first. Before we can start to dump words on a page, where do you need to be? And I can't stress this enough. Melissa hit it off really well for us at the top here, which she said, you don't need to be everywhere. And I couldn't agree more. There was a time a few years ago where it was like, you kind of had to be, or we felt like we needed to be. And it was just like puke out a million things and repurpose them or cross post them on every channel. And don't miss out on every single one of them, right down to Foursquare and Google Plus. But now we can say, no, I know that I'm going to see results because my audience's attention is on YouTube, and I'm going to see results there if I do it well. And then I can have my secondary platforms are my blog and my e-newsletter, and my tertiary are Facebook, Instagram. But I can really repurpose on those tier 3 platforms. I don't need to make them my end all be all and spend a ton of time on them if my YouTube is killing it once a week. So where, when, and how often is a really serious commitment. I can't believe I just said that, but something that you need to take seriously and hold yourself to it. Or it's, you know, you've got this loosey-goosey plan that's continuously changing. So where should you be focusing your efforts? This is an individual question, because again, there are so many platforms that take increased commitment today. And we know that our attention, the attention span of our audiences, our fans, our followers, subscribers is so much lessened and heightened, the expectations anyway, than it used to be. When we say increased commitment, I'm talking about the fact that, yes, there's more competition on Instagram today between businesses than there was 5 years ago. There's more of us on it. But beyond that, there's more features within these programs. Within LinkedIn, you've got articles, posts, lives, groups, sales tools, chat, there's inbox, lots of stuff to kind of sink your teeth into individually in the programs. You could have a LinkedIn strategy alone with 5 different content types going out at all times. Ditto for Instagram, IGTV, lives, reels, stories, posts, ads. There's so much there. So really thinking, is it sustainable? And where do I need to be based on where my audience is today or where they're going tomorrow? And take your crystal ball out and start to take some bold decisions or guesses as to where and why they're headed there, and then and go there. So we talk about the key platforms here as social media, blog, podcast, video, and those micro videos like reels and stories as the most important things to think about in a modern marketing landscape. Yes, you can really focus on collaborations and influencer marketing or paid campaigns, that's fine. But in our content strategy, you've got to have 3 to 4 of these things at the forefront, and ideally 1 that sits at the very top of the pile. Where do you need to be is the first question. When and how often should you or could you post or publish? What should you be posting? We've talked a lot about when it comes to those pillars, categories, and the creativity that you've got to find a way to weave in, even if it involves some wine and some girlfriends and asking questions and watching what other people are doing and getting that much more interesting in the what. And then how do you keep it organized, easy, and on track is today's theme. I showed you Content Studio. It's my go-to scheduling tool. And I've got 6 categories here, so I'm breaking all the rules. But I can establish my categories in this tool, and then I can add posts to it into my content bank and categorize them. Then I can create a sort of plan that shows that every Monday on Facebook and LinkedIn, website related post goes out, and it pulls from that bank of website pillar and it puts it out there in a way that it can cycle through and repeat it if I wanted, which I probably wouldn't do, but it's just going to keep pulling that evergreen content out. And by evergreen, I mean that my posts that sit within my, website bank of content or category of content are going to be relevant for those next few weeks. I have an eye on them. It's not set it and forget it, but I've put them in there in a way, and I'm seeing where they fall in the calendar when it kind of spits out the schedule, and I make sure that they fit. I don't want something going out talking about next week's webinar on websites if of course it's, you know, already passed. So it's not foolproof, but certainly helpful. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like again in kind of the actual published view. So if you've got the ability to create those 52 topics, or at least half of those, start with 26. You've got 6 months worth of ideas that you can really start to batch create. So this carefully curated content will help us reach our goals, and then also kind of allow us to schedule things by pillar or by priority. This is again what my sort of queue slots look like in Content Studio. You can do this in a program called Meet Edgar as well. I just happen to like Content Studio a little better. Buffer used to do this too when I was heavily into scheduling tweets by category or pillar. But this may not be your thing. But my point here is this might be a more sophisticated tool, but if we can start to divide up our content into pillars and base them in revenue goals, we're in good shape. So the Keystone content allowed us to identify and prioritize our tier 1, 2, and 3 platforms, right? And the idea is that that top of the pile stuff is going to really kind of allow us to create easily the secondary and tertiary content channels or content, and that they're less important, but can't be forgotten. So my suggestion to you was that video or blog should be that tier 1. Do one and help it create the other, or vice versa. It's really nice if you can film a video with a couple of jotted notes in your head in advance and make it a 10-minute video, a 40-minute live, a Q&A, whatever, and then get the transcript out of that and easily turn it into written content. And you can do that in rev.com, or my favorite is capwing.com, capwing with a K. And now you've got all these written words that have been spewed out of your mouth or whoever you were interviewing, and you don't have to sit there and painstakingly write them. And if you've got some longer transcripts like that, you can hand them over to someone else to edit too and turn into social captions or e-newsletter snippets. So if you can do it that way, great. If video is not on your radar or your thing, no problem. But maybe you want to dictate into your phone some blog ideas, and then again, have those edited by someone or yourself when you can sit down and do step 4 of the N.I.C.E.R method, which is edit. We're getting there. So the editorial calendar is where it all kind of comes together. Ideally, you're going to see it laid out. You're going to see it laid out by category or platform, and you know that it's consistent and moving forward. The idea here, of course, is that if we fail to plan, we're planning to fail. You've all heard it. So there's many stages to the game: the brainstorming, drafting, editing, the image sourcing, or the image creating if you're taking original photos or graphic design assets created every week, possibly approvals. And then of course, the optimizing maybe for a search engine if it's a blog post, publishing, and then all the things that happen after it's scheduled and published, cross-posting it, promoting it on various channels. Maybe you're iterating or tweaking it a little bit. Maybe you're using some A/B testing in your subject lines of your e-newsletter. There's so many things that can go into this. So what we need here is a process for that. This is where it's up to you, but you can think about it in terms of a week in advance, a month in advance, a quarter in advance. There's people that batch shoot their Instagram reels every Sunday, and they schedule them to go out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Bob's your uncle. And then you do it again next week, and you just have ideas constantly flowing throughout the week as you're seeing how they're performing, and you're not working too far in advance that you don't feel relevant. So that might be a weekly schedule. It might be, you know, something like Monday, plan, draft, and schedule after you've gotten through your emails and admin in the morning. And you get creative and you block that time Monday afternoon. And then Tuesdays are like, shoot that video, record 3 or 4 of those quick little 10-minute sound bites on a how-to, a did you know, an interview. Wednesday, send it off to someone or sit down and carve out a couple hours yourself to edit and schedule that content. And the editing can be the biggest part, because by that, we're not just talking about like a quick little once over to see if there's any spelling mistakes. We're talking sometimes about, you know, taking a landscape format video and turning it into a vertical, and that can take time. or getting those captions written and editing them all in the caption tool and then pulling it out and turning that into many different kind of pieces. So I often am blown away by how long the tweaking and the kind of just finalizing process takes as compared to the creative process. Just give yourself enough time for that. And then perhaps Thursday to Wednesday, it's rolling out so that you have kind of a midweek to week process where you always know that new content's going to be live on the Thursday or whatever it looks like for you. This is what we did at agency. This is what my first content agency was called, Press and Post, and it was started in 2014, 2015 when we really started to see clients shift from needing media coverage and reputation management to content like crazy. And it didn't make sense to us to be working a month in advance or anything further out than that because it was social media. It had to be current. It had to be really relevant that week. It had to talk about current events of the week and be so timely and be really, really aware of what was happening. And, even though we were scheduling things, we were constantly getting on the phone with the client on a Monday or maybe the Friday. And then we were planning out the week in advance based on their milestones, goals, ideas, and our same thing that we'd kind of mapped out in a strategy for that quarter, but bringing anything new to the table from both sides. Then create, and schedule. And it was just an unbelievable process in that it was so draining and so time consuming. And we were like, this is nuts. Over time, we started to evolve into more of a monthly process. And amen to those magazines that have been working months in advance for as long as they've existed. And we took a page out of their book. So the idea is like, start of the quarter, create your strategy. Just name some of those of course, content topics, but maybe even some bigger monthly themes. Again, the magazine, we talk a lot about them because that editorial calendar came from print magazines, where September is the runway edition and March is the homes edition and November is the top 40 edition. So they've got these themes to further anchor their content into. Further to that, if you're running a digital business or something that people have the reason to unsubscribe after a while, if you leave them wanting more or your themes build on one another, or in the third week or the fourth week of the month, you tee up that free thing you're going to give them next month, or that just interesting guest speaker or feature theme, it keeps us coming back for more. Magazines don't do a great job of this, but we trust them enough and we look forward enough to their quality professional journalism and layout and design that we can't wait to, again, pick up next month's issue. But for most of us starting out or less established, we need to give people a reason to come back for more and to keep subscribing. So that's where monthly themes can also be really, really cool, or even just quarterly. So, I mean, you can do this however you want. I'm going to just hop down here to a more specific version, the N.I.C.E.R method. Just got these names called out a little bit more. So we're naming those themes and those overall content plans or those topics that we did 2 weeks ago. And of course, if you don't yet have your pillars and your categories, but those can change too. My content pillars are never the same year to year. Then the Ideate. So we're sitting down and we're actually in week 1, taking those topics that we came up with that are like a singular sentence. And we're like, hey, legit, what really is this? Who's the guest? What type of post will this be? Where is it going to shine? Like, what does it make sense to do it as a video, or could we do this as a series of IGTVs or stories or something? And then all the other elements that are going to go into it. And maybe you're even ready, hopefully, to start mind mapping some of those posts. So you're taking some kind of tool, even if it's just sticky notes, and you're creating the main idea with just 3 to 4 bubbles that come off of that idea so that you stay on track and it doesn't turn into a 5,000 word ramble. It is a tight idea that people can really wrap their heads around and that you can promote like crazy when you publish it. Week 2, remember week 2 and the week 3 are sort of the bigger ones. Week 2, you sit down, you craft that. You block out 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever it takes you. You drive to Banff and you sit in the Rundle Lounge and pretend you're a guest and you don't talk to anyone and you bang out a bunch of rough drafts. But you get those 4 weeks of June content written in week 2 of May, so that you've got some serious foundational meaty content to work with in the next 2 weeks. We're also in that week, not just creating sort of the drafts or the scripts or the written words, we have to start bringing in the imagery. So do you have an image bank? Wonderful if you do, that you can also do every quarter, which is like maybe a photo shoot in your restaurant, or it's a, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going into stock photos. It's buying whatever you need that you don't have. It's creating a batch of graphics in Canva that you know will carry you through these themes for the week or the month, the quarter or the month. These things take time. So that kind of crafting can be a lot easier if you've got a bank set up in advance. It's well organized. You can lean on several stock versus real photos versus graphics is what I like to do. I like to cycle through that kind of for interest sake in my Instagram feed, for example. And then I can pull those in the appropriate photo or graphic, or just quickly tweak it in Canva to match that blog post or Instagram live. Week 3, editing it. This is literally where we're like getting our shit together and making it into something that is absolutely scheduled. You don't want to revisit this the week of when it's going live. Oh shit, I still have to go in and like edit that or create a subject line for that e-newsletter. There is nothing that derails you and me more than those final pieces that you feel like you're not creative enough to think of it in that moment. So that's why if we sit down and we create this edit block, we get it completely to the finish line. So much so that in week 4, when we come back, all we're thinking about is reach. All we're thinking about is boosting those posts to exactly the right audience in advance. If we've scheduled some in Facebook and some in Instagram and LinkedIn, we can pre-boost them, $10 a piece for our $200 boosted content budget per month, which would go a long way for a lot of us. Maybe it's $2,000, whatever it is, but you want to get that seen and you want to have those audiences built in advance, which we can go deeper into in many of our digital advertising courses. But if you've got 5 audiences, very specific, and the overlap is limited, you've done an audience overlap test to see that there's less than 20% overlap between this audience of women in Saskatoon, with a few more interests and behaviors, of course, and this audience of teenage boys in Toronto and this group of entrepreneurs in Calgary, so that you're not spamming them all with paid content, because your results will be lower on the whole. If Facebook sees that you are spamming or promoting content to the same group with your boosted posts all the time, you're going to have abysmal results. So great if you're working through your content in a way that you know that this was designed for this audience because it falls into this pillar, and this was designed for this audience a little bit more, and this one is for this group. Amazing, because then it becomes much easier to cycle through your boosted audiences as well and reach them with the stuff they want to see. There is 0 point in boosting content to the group of boys in Toronto. I don't know what you're boosting to them, but something, if it's designed for women in Saskatoon. You get the picture. So of course we want to nail where it's landing and who we're targeting. And this is what we do in week 4. We don't go in and edit our posts. We ideally just focus on that Derek Halpern 80-20 rule. 20% of our time is built on creating the content. 80% is spent getting it seen, promoting it, proliferating it, repurposing it. And maybe it's not 80%, but it's at least a good week or so. And then of course, that's only the work that you're going to do as that month of content rolls out. So we've got in May, we created June's content. It's going to start rolling out on June 1, and we're going to watch it. And that has to be something that you take half an hour every other day and you go in and you maintain. Remember, it's not set and forget. It's keep up with it. It's take note of what's happening and what's working. If you've got ad campaigns and or boosted posts running, you're seeing how they're performing, you're tweaking it. If one's killing it and it got huge reach over 5 days because that blog post nailed it and you wrote the best article on sunscreen and it's getting seen a lot, it's getting shared a lot, you've tagged the right people in the post, well, maybe in week 2 of that month, a few days after that post went live, you're also sending a note to, Fun and Sun magazine that they may want to feature this post. Or, hey, podcaster on sunscreen and skin cancer, I just wrote this blog post, it's doing really well. Would you be interested in speaking to me about it? Amazing amounts of kind of reach and return that we can do after the fact. But it's really easy then to not think about July's content. So the cleaner we can make this method and the tighter we can get our process, the more we can actually have it grow legs when it goes live and really kind of do well by it. So, oh my gosh, I haven't been looking at the chat. I'm so sorry. Let me see what you guys are saying here. Lindsay, I'm looking to get some photography for my bank and want to hire a photographer. What's the cost for a day rate? Or do you have a few favorites? Great question. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of restaurants and tourism and small business organizations, and I feel like they have tighter budgets than, say, the corporate clients. And the most successful versions of photography outsourcing, for in my experience with those types of groups, are to hire someone and say, I need a quarter, I need like 3 months worth of photography, and here's your shot list, and I hope to have 100 usable photos here. And remember, this is not disposable photography, but it's photos for social and for content. So I don't need high res, I don't need commercial shots, I don't need you know, something that I'm going to be putting on a billboard and thus paying a fortune for you to shoot for me because it's being used for like extreme commercial purposes. And people usually get it. We've had, you know, what I would pay for that, $1,500, but I would expect that the shoot would take place in one day. We would visit multiple locations, or if I'm at a restaurant, the chefs would have every dish coming out and we would shoot every single one in the span of an hour or two, and they'd be steaming hot. And if we missed that one killer burger shot beside the fries, I'd go find that on stock. Of course, we want to lean on as much original photography as possible, but stock can fill the gaps beautifully. I would also, you know, and conferences and live events we've had, very often, I'll be frank, it's a $500 budget for someone to come and shoot that, but they're only going to give me 2 hours, and they're going to come for the height of the day, and they're going to turn around those photos without edits, and that's great. I'd rather get the raw photos anyway, because I can pull them into you know, Photoshop or Lightroom and apply a quick filter. I am not a post-production expert or a photography expert by any means, but I know enough about how to apply a filter that I can make that look decent. And I don't need someone to mess with their own filters, but you want those source files. And again, I often said this to photographers and freelancers in my agency days, was like, interestingly, writers have been underpaid forever, and they understand the need to create a lot of content on a continual basis for, you know, kind of recurring retainer contracts. Whereas photographers, I found it harder to get them to understand that, yes, I understand this is art. I'm totally generalizing here, and this is an unpopular opinion, but it's art. I understand, but I need to own those files. And also, you can't charge me $10,000. Gone are the days where the corporate photography gig exists, where someone's making 20 grand in a day. And the photographers that got that and took it one step further and created packages, and same with graphic designers and writers, they created something that a small business or any business could sink their teeth into and be like, yeah, I totally need that month over month. I can absolutely do 500 a month or whatever, as opposed to these massive one-offs. And they understood that the needs had changed for businesses, where it becomes this daily beast that they have to fill of their social feeds. And thus the contractor needs to kind of speak that language too. I know that was a long answer. Sorry, Lindsay. I hope that helps. And really, just like, if you know your posts in advance and your needs, you're going to get so much more out of that photographer. If you're dictating, the worst thing you can do is go in without a shot list or some kind of like specifics on exactly what you need them to achieve. Katie is saying Substance is a local company that does a great job with content photography. I use them regularly. That is awesome. There's a few independents in my fold. If anyone needs an email, I can happily send you their way. And hopefully, I'm just going to plug Social Marketplace again here. Within Social Market, we'll have more photographers are adding their listings all the time, and graphic designers as well. Diana is saying, is there a program that you use to automatically post? Yes, many. So I mean, one of my favorites is Facebook Creator Studio. If anyone's using that, it's pretty good, but it's only going to help you schedule and automate for Facebook and Instagram. Hootsuite and Buffer and Sprout Social. There's so many multi-platform scheduling tools today, but truly my favorite has become Content Studio because of yeah, just the calendar view. You can see your dashboard and create content for one channel or all. You can tick, so it's that normal kind of multi-platform scheduler, but then it also has really amazing discover tools. So you can kind of find or have like almost like a feed burner of articles and content in your industry that it's feeding you ideas for right in here, kind of like a news feed, to pull in and repurpose or post. But again, you kind of want to be careful not to have too much OPC, other people's content. You want to repurpose it into your own, but it's a great way to get ideas. And then it's got your inbox too. So really nice if your scheduling tool can also have your engagement all handled in one place, and you can respond to direct messages, tweets, retweets, replies, whatever. So that is Content Studio. There's a few more. Our tool shop, or sorry, our tools page, social school /tools has 30 of my favorite tools. And those include, graphic design, everything DIY, photo editing. I'm losing my words. I'm sorry. Video editing, scheduling, content management, project management, tons of stuff, website, etc. Hope that helps, Dan. And if anyone else has any others, please, by all means. The only other one that I use actually alongside Content Studio is Planoly, because I still really love seeing my Instagram posts planned in a 9 grid where you can see all the way down. Okay, back to Melissa saying aaronbrook.com and pointed in me is what I just read. Holy old lady, put your glasses on. Point in time, yyc.com. Why was that so hard? They are your local favorite photographers, Melissa? That's awesome. Very cool. There are, in Social Club last week on Friday Coffee, what came up was a few people that are trying out graphic design subscriptions, which is really cool. You can't necessarily do this with a photographer so easily because they probably need to be on site to shoot things for you. But maybe not. Maybe they can just curate imagery off the internet because you've got a home-based business and you're baking cookies, but you don't really want those shot. You want all sorts of other things shot. You're a home builder and you need materials or finished products or whatever. But the graphic design subscriptions are popping up everywhere and they're really neat. There's even one out of Edmonton where you can pay $300 a month and you get unlimited graphic design projects and unlimited revisions. And take that with a grain of salt because they're probably only going to work on one project at a time. Or Fiverr and certain Upwork, they are also really great. Sometimes you can find a fantastic designer on there. Lindsay is saying it's for an accountant and she's moving to coaching for business productivity and profit. The platform is going to be mostly LinkedIn, but can I put my normal life, no one like type images of her at home? Yes. My newest hire at Social School is a gal named Haley, and she has done a lot of work for a local realtor whose platforms are, real estate, community, and fitness. And it's not necessarily what I would do personally, but who cares? I'm not her. And she does a fantastic job, both Haley, but same with this realtor at showcasing who she is. And if fitness and family is a huge part of her life, by all means, step into it. It's not going to be for everyone, but those that really resonate with that are going to love it. And you and I have both seen the celebrities at home, the accountant at home, the person in their element or in the wild of their life that they're letting us into, especially if it's for an accountant. Like, that's awesome, Lindsay. If you can show us more of those kind of images of her at home, especially if they're like, they look professional and well, whatever, even if they don't, as long as they're authentic, I think that people might really love that. I guess it's a question though too of, as an accountant, what do people want to see? How much candidness do they want to see from their accountant? But I would also suggest that the more she can connect and engage, that should almost be a pillar in itself. We have to sometimes remember to take our, what do people want to see about me hat off? And what do they want to see about people like me that this person works with? So is there a way for you to showcase her clients and that transformation or those end results? Let's take Camp Hoo Ha for a minute, which Diana maybe can weigh in with us or for us with if she has some insights for us. But I use Camp Hoo Ha religiously as the example of a brand. a campaign, a pain point that I didn't know I had, that I came across one day. Somehow I was led there. It led me inbound marketing versus push outbound. And I got to the homepage, and I've never thrown my credit card at a screen so fast. I was just like, what is this magical women's group of brownie camp for ladies who need friendships and badges and bonfires and beer? And I kept scrolling, and I'm like, and there's my friend Mel, and oh my God, there's Mandy, and there's Julie, the camp counselors, the food counselors, and then I get to the bottom, and then there's this like vagina tent logo, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know I needed it. And it was or that I wanted it. It was one of those things where they caught me. Mel, her company, her brand, her positioning caught me on the first glance. I didn't bookmark it. I might come back to this, which we won't. Or, oh, I don't know, is this for me? It's not really speaking my language. It was. And it was just such a like fantastic example of making it about her people. Mel had an idea. She wanted to go to camp just like her daughter and collect badges and be back in kind of the throngs of being 8 years old or 12 and having a good time. And she knew that other women would feel that way too. But even though Mel has told her story, she makes it so much about the stories of her campers, and they just love that. I think we've all kind of embraced each other so much. Diana, do you have anything to add about Camp Hoo Ha? I know I'm kind of talking broad swaths here of everything from content and branding to desire, but maybe something that's really working for you guys?
Oh goodness, I really don't, because Mel is the genius there. She's incredible. I don't know how she does it, but yeah, no, she's definitely the creative side of things. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Obviously, you're helping her make all of that come to life, and she's told me the same about you, which is super cool. But I do think it's really neat for us, again, some of us like to get buried in the tactics and the how, like, how am I going to make this happen? And that's great. I'm pushing you to do so and to create a process for yourself. But I think that equally important is finding the creativity that's going to make it land. Because if at the end of the day, you've got nothing but tactics and zero interesting content of your accountant, Lindsay, then no one's reading it. So we've got to find that nice blend. Lindsay, do you have any further ideas on that or insights about this account moving towards coaching for business productivity and profit? Sounds like she's making a bit of a pivot.
Yeah, the charming part about her, I guess, is that she's small and kind of deals in first person and wants like a certain type of client. And she says that her differentiator is that she's not like a normal accountant, and that I actually have a personality and I empathize with people and don't just throw their numbers at them, and feel their pain. So, and she wants to deal mainly with women entrepreneurs. So
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And her husband is her like main employee, and it's their life that they have like a really good yin and yang kind of relationship that I've worked like in their office with them, and it's observable. It's cute. So you kind of want to be part of her fold because she's
that's awesome.
But she's super camera shy and her husband's like goofy. And so I'm hoping it'll all work out. So,
yeah.
But the photographer, I can't find one. You'd think I would, but so those are good referrals. So thank you.
Yeah. There's a gal named Isabel in my world that I'm happy to send you her email address for. But yeah, no shortage of photographers looking for work these days. So I'm sure we can help you out there. I really love like just what you said, just the idea of someone being quite magnetizing and oftentimes shy. Like if I always find it interesting that people are unsure of whether they have much to say that would be of interest to their prospects, or if you're pushing them into a podcast or a video blog or whatever it is. But it's amazing when you do start asking them questions about their work, how much people light up and actually do want to talk about it. And I constantly go back to days like in the newsroom where you'd be interviewing the most unwilling subject, or watching the sports reporters do it with hockey players was always my favorite. And you get these awful sound bites and just kind of repeat robotic responses until you start like engaging with them on something that they actually care about, and then you watch them light up and they're excited to talk. Or likewise, if classic example of an industry where the content marketer or the marketing manager is charged with pulling sound bites out of the CEO or the group of doctors running this eye clinic or whatever, who don't have time, aren't interested, don't buy in, don't believe in it. And as soon as it becomes this, for one, mandatory assignment, I'm going to call you up when you're in your car on the way home and I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Oh, okay, I can do that. And it gets rolling. We saw this with a CEO of a pipeline company last year that we were working with, and he was skeptical of the entire operation and why any pipeline would have to be on social media. And then the team there really kind of not wore him down, but show him, for one, how much people loved it when he showed up on social, and two, how much he actually had to say that people were interested in, both as employees, as stakeholders, investors, and general public. And the last time I talked to the VP of marketing, she said, oh, he's practically taken over our social feeds. He can't get enough of it, in the right way too, right? And sometimes we have to shove a microphone in their face with a set calendar, and do that for our clients as well. And you'll get pushback in the same way that I gave our team pushback. Like, I can't today, I'm too tired and old. And then I'm so grateful when someone holds me to it and just shows up with a microphone or a camera and we get something out there. So I would say the best thing you can do is hold her to it.
Okay, one other question is just because of like time and just need to get something going with her social media. We're also going to do videos, and how do I plan that out? Like, are you going to touch on that? Like, should I just set her up with some topics and get her to record them herself so they look semi-authentic, or do I hire a videographer to like bust it up into pieces? So
yeah, I think it depends how, like, if you're looking for a marquee video that could live as the kind of pinned video on her website or on her YouTube page, for example, people will often create one great documentary style 2-minute video with a professional. I saw this just the other day, actually, with again, the same realtor who had this fantastic video shot one time a few years ago that was this really great overview and very professional, but then the rest of her videos are very candid. So we actually, I just was looking at it this morning, our video storytelling course in our 360 series has a whole bunch of scripts, like just these like planning sheets for storyboarding your video. If you want to go to that length, by all means. It's just, though, a matter of like saying, okay, start, middle, and end of this video. Is it going to be 2 minutes? Is it going to be 10 minutes? Are you doing a 30-second reel? Very different. So Lindsay, I think it's up to you to say, here's our strategy. Here's how much video we're going to do. And maybe once a month, it's a 30-minute interview. Or that could be week 1's video. Week 2's video could be a 30-second reel where she's busting one myth or giving one fact. Week 3's video or keystone content could be an interview with a past client that's just 10 minutes and it's done on IGTV with a split screen. And week 4 could be, I don't know, a walk and talk or a coffee chat or something. But I think the more you can dictate the format and then quickly storyboard it or just loosely script it with three main talking points, you're going to hand her something that makes her less nervous, and it doesn't have to be verbatim read. I don't think that any of us really resonate with videos that are just kind of a read script that's almost like a teleprompter. You want someone to feel really confident about the ideas at hand, which come from those topics, but also like it's easy to execute and it doesn't need a full team. I mean, that's just not realistic, you know? Does that help at all? I mean, it's the same with e-newsletters, right? Like, we can get daunted by anything, a blog post, whatever it is. You assign someone, especially a client, to say, I need to film you on video, or you need to create me a blog every week for the month. They're like, on what? And what format? How long? Oh my God, when? But the more you can give them, sort of like a framework for it, and maybe even just a little template of each one, I think the better results you're going to get. Does anyone have any other final thoughts as we talk about kind of, I'm going to leave you with one last one, but audience targeting maybe, or even just tools and process, feel free to put them in the chat. So one final thing, and I kind of talked on this already when we spoke about those audiences that we're targeting, the boys in Toronto versus the ladies in Saskatoon. If you're feeling like you can layer this into your content, it's a really smart thing to think about in advance. Who is this for? I often use the example of so many of us go to write a press release, for example, or we have to get this out to media and we like write it so perfectly. And then at the very end, and we get a million approvals and it's 3 pages long and it's full of industry jargon. And then at the end, we're like, who is this going to? What media outlet would receive this? Well, there's no longer 300 media personalities to send it to in any particular city. There's like 4. So you might as well tailor that, work backwards, knowing that this is going to be a breaking story for Avenue Magazine, and this is for the Globe and Mail X reporter because they write on this. And then you tailor the content to that person and you write them a custom pitch. In the same way that our content, we have to keep in mind who it's for. So if you can think about it however you want, if you've got audiences that are based on kind of some personas of male, female, millennials, or existing clientele, prospective clientele, overseas or online clientele, or the easiest way, hot, warm, cold. So if we think about this, because this is how we build ad campaigns, hot or custom audiences, as they're called in Facebook Ads Manager, are repeat buyers. They're at the bottom of the funnel. They have like gotten to know you. They've been on your website. They've attended your events. They've subscribed to you for years, or maybe you've just tracked them with a pixel and you've got their data in order to target them with more specific content because they're not just part of this cold top of funnel bucket of big, broad strangers. The warm, of course, are those leads that you've already kind of, maybe they're aware of you a little bit, they've thought about buying from you, but never have, or it's been a long time since they've worked with you, whatever it is. You're somehow considering them some kind of warm lead. They could be a lookalike audience if you're building it as an ad set, where they're similar to that group of hot buyers in Calgary, but they live in Winnipeg. So somewhere in the middle of the funnel, or again, just a little bit more specific content if you're moving them along and they're getting closer to buying or subscribing or whatever. And then of course, what we always are continuously filling is the top of our funnel with new leads. And most of our content is going to fall into this category. It's about generating awareness and then of course some interest, but just straight up, here's who I am, here's what I do. And this is the kind of content that we have to create the most of, because we always want to be, of course, generating, new prospective people in our world. So I'm going to leave you with this: determining your content pillars and categories, and then ideally some of those topics, and starting to plug them into a planning tool of some kind. Just a brain dump. Sit with your client if you have one, and start asking them those same questions. What could you talk about for days? What are some industry misconceptions? What do people most love about your business or your brand? Oh, well, actually, and you'll see your client or your own brain light up with content that you didn't think was relevant, but trust me, it is. And then activate some of those planning tools and software. So maybe it's a free tool, Planoly, Hootsuite, Schedugram, just even Facebook Creator Studio. Start there because it's free. And it's a really nice way to schedule your Instagram and Facebook posts. And then determine your process. Most importantly, what are you going to do quarterly, monthly, weekly in order to make this all happen? And hopefully the Content Club, which launches in July, can be a part of that. If you're wanting support on that, it's going to be $29 a month. It's going to be awesome because we're going to do it together every single week for an hour a week, hopefully. But then there'll be some added kind of co-work time and just get it done. It's going to be a way for us to collectively and collaboratively block time, make it happen, and then really feel good about our results. Any final questions? You can activate now if you like, or just a couple additional kind of discussion topics or thoughts, anyone?
Can I pop in for a quick question? You had mentioned Creator Studio is the Facebook free
That's right.
piece.
Yeah.
Is there a equivalent for LinkedIn for that type of thing, or not, like a pre-scheduled?
No. Yeah, LinkedIn still doesn't give you the ability to schedule certain, like you can't schedule articles, I believe, and you rely on a third-party tool for most of your LinkedIn publishing or planning. And now that I'm saying that, though, I'm second guessing it. I'm quite certain that you need to use a third-party tool. I just always have. And the one that I showed you, Content Studio, does that really well, which is different than Facebook Creator Studio.
Oh,
Ditto
yes.
with Social Pilot actually is another really great one that's pretty affordable. I think I was paying $40 a month when I was trying out that one. So yeah, and if you were to Google, or again, go on our tools shop page, and you'll see tons of other examples of really good tried and tested scheduling tools. But there's so many that you'll see in search if you were to do a little hunt around. Thanks,
Okay.
Katie. Yeah, Melissa, are you using a certain planning tool?
No, my planning is with a couple small clients, so they like to do a little bit of their own and then I do a little bit. So it's kind of a mishmash of who's doing what. So
Yeah.
I think there's some planning that needs to happen with us. But this is really helpful. So thank you.
No problem.
And your
The
tools
nice thing
section,
about, oh, cool.
you have lots of
Yeah.
tools. I didn't realize you had that whole section there.
Yeah, it's been a really fun one to finally create, because yeah, for years we've just been rifling off our favorite, photo editing tool or social media scheduler. And it was fun to compile that tool shop, and then of course the templates that support it if needed. But the other really good thing about most of these planning tools, the social media planners, is that they'll have a draft mode. So you put it into draft and you can then alert someone to it if they need to go and, give it a final peek or glance, whether that's yourself or your client or your boss or whatever, before it goes live. So there's a lot of collaboration that can happen on them, from strategizing, draft mode, scheduled and published mode, and then promoted and kind of review the results mode.
And hopefully the client would do it back to us so we can proof their thing instead of going in and
Totally.
editing. Because I'm always
Yeah.
going in and editing what they posted. I'm like, what?
Oh gosh, yes, totally.
They go
And
rogue sometimes. You're like, whoa.
yes, exactly. They go to a trade show and they post 20 Instagram posts from the floor of the trade show, and it just like wrecks your beautiful feed. But more than that,
or it's just like spelling mistakes and you're
yes.
like,
Yeah, it's not helping.
No,
And that's
it's okay.
where, again, like, feet to the fire. If you're a paid agency or a contractor, but let's take a page out of a paid agency who's doing social media very seriously for big clients, you better believe there are quarterly planning sessions, and they're working well in advance of a month ahead, because they have to. Otherwise, stuff goes live on their massive feeds to their enormous audiences, and they look like, morons when it doesn't ring correct or has spelling mistakes. So the more planning and work in advance you can do, and the more you can train your clients that that's your process, the more sophisticated they'll feel and how good they'll feel about it too, because it is so nice to see high quality content rolling out when it is. It's pretty awesome. Lindsay's asking, your clients can go and utilize the post scheduler also, and you get to edit them. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you guys, let's end it there. Thank you so much for joining today. And we're going to switch gears a little bit next week. We'll still continue to talk content, of course, but I think we're going to be talking about some productivity actually next week with one of maybe our productivity tools at the fore, and just in general, furthering this whole process idea around, what is making our marketing efforts manageable and actually kind of exciting too, and not quite such a pain in the butt. So thanks, Mary. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you online very soon. And let me know if you need anything, and we'll see you in Social Club. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Samantha. See you, Michelle.